My little brother, Leo, swore he saw a zombified Santa dragging a bloody sack through the woods behind our house. Of course, we all laughed at him. We said he just had a nightmare, that shadows in the woods can play tricks on you. We laughed, right up until we found the first missing child's toy lying at the edge of the tree line. It was the first week of December. The kind of thick, wet snow that clings to every single branch was burying our house, making the world outside feel small and totally silent. My little brother was 8, which is that perfect, fragile age where the magic of Christmas is just starting to come apart at the seams. He was a smart kid. I think part of him already knew the truth about the man in the red suit, which is exactly why what he told us was so terrifying. He'd woken all of us up screaming. And I don't mean the usual kid's nightmare cry. This was a raw animal terror that had my dad grabbing the baseball bat he kept by his bed. We found Leo in his room, his finger trembling as he pointed at the window that looked out over the woods bordering our property. Through these broken sobs, he told us what he saw: Santa Claus. Except it wasn't the jolly guy from the Coca-Cola ads. This one, Leo said, was broken. Its suit was torn, stained a dark, wet brown. It didn't really walk. It lurched, dragging one leg behind it, and it wasn't carrying a sack of gifts. It was dragging a heavy burlap bag that was leaking, leaving a dark trail in the clean white snow. He smelled bad, Leo whispered, his face completely pale, like dirt and old meat. We calmed him down. Mom made him some warm milk, and my dad went around checking the locks, peering into the dark woods where he saw nothing but more snow. It was just a dream, we told him. A really nasty one, probably brought on by too many Christmas cookies. The next morning, we were all making fun of him about it. Zombie Santa, I called him. My dad chuckled, but Leo didn't laugh. He just stared out at the woods, his breakfast totally untouched. A couple of days later, I was taking the trash out. The snow had finally stopped and the air was just sharp and cold. As I was trudging back to the house, something caught my eye, right where our lawn meets the chaos of the forest. It was a splash of color against all that white. I walked over to see what it was. It was an action figure, one of those ridiculously muscular sci-fi soldiers half buried in the snow. It was grimy and covered in mud, like it had been spit out of the forest floor. I almost tossed it, thinking it was just some trash, but then I noticed its leg was bent at a completely wrong angle, the plastic all white and stressed, about to snap. It was junk. But when I walked back inside, Leo saw it in my hand, and his eyes went wide. "That's Captain Starfall," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "That's Mikey's. He takes him everywhere." Mikey was Leo's best friend from school. I told Leo it had to be a coincidence. Maybe Mikey dropped it a while ago and the snow was just now melting, but Leo just shook his head. "Mikey hasn't been over in weeks," he said, "and he wasn't at school today." A cold knot formed in my stomach. I told myself it was nothing. It had to be. I tossed the toy in the kitchen junk drawer and tried to forget I ever saw it, but I couldn't forget. Not after the local evening news 2 days later. They led with a story that made my blood run cold. A 7-year-old boy, Michael Peterson, from the next town over, was missing. He had vanished from his backyard 2 days earlier. The police had 0 leads. Then the news anchor, in that somber, practiced voice, said, Michael was last seen playing with his favorite action figure, Captain Starfall. My parents and I just looked at each other in horror. My dad went to the junk drawer and pulled out the toy. It was the same one. There was no doubt. We just sat there in stunned silence. The festive Christmas lights blinking around us suddenly felt gross, just wrong. Leo had been right. He saw something. The laughter in our house was gone. It was replaced by this creeping, suffocating dread. The next week, another toy appeared at the tree line. This time, a porcelain doll, its little Victorian dress ripped and stained with mud. One of its vacant blue eyes was cracked. That same night, we heard that a little girl from a town 20 miles away had disappeared. Her favorite toy was a porcelain doll from her grandmother. It was a pattern, a sick, twisted calling card. this thing, this zombie Santa, was leaving trophies. It wasn't just a monster, it was a collector, and it had picked the woods behind our house to be its showroom. We all know the figure of Santa Claus comes from traditions like St. Nicholas and Father Christmas and is a symbol of giving. This was a mockery of that, an entity that only took, leaving behind heartbreak in these awful little monuments. We had no idea what to do. Call the police and tell them what? That a monster from my 8-year-old's nightmare was leaving toys for missing kids on our property. They'd think we were crazy, or worse, that we were involved. So we did nothing, we just watched, and we waited. My dad installed new deadbolts and a massive floodlight that lit up the entire backyard. But the woods were so vast and dark that the light just seemed to make the shadows look deeper and more threatening. Leo stopped playing outside. He wouldn't even look out his window anymore. He started saying he could hear it at night sometimes, a faint scratching, like fingernails on frozen leaves. He'd whisper, "He's checking, he knows I saw him." One night, I couldn't sleep. The house was dead silent, except for the hum of the fridge. I found myself staring out the kitchen window into the pure black of the forest. The floodlight made the trees cast these long skeletal shadows, and then I saw it. Movement. A figure stepped out from behind a thick oak tree, right at the edge of the light. It was tall, impossibly tall, and stooped over like it was carrying something heavy. It was wearing a red suit, but the color was so dark and filthy it was almost black. And it moved all wrong, with this jerky, unnatural shuffle that suggested broken bones and stiff muscles. You see this kind of thing in Christmas horror movies, a corrupted Santa turned into a monster. But I was watching one crawl out of a story and into my own backyard. It turned its head slowly, and even from 100 feet away, I felt its eyes on me. I couldn't see a face, just a pale, sunken blur under a dirty white beard. But I could feel its gaze. It was cold and it was smart. This wasn't some mindless zombie. It was a hunter. It knew we were watching. It just stood there for a second, a statue of pure dread, before it melted back into the darkness. I didn't scream. The fear was too deep for that. I just stood there, my heart pounding, finally understanding the terror my little brother had felt. Christmas Eve didn't arrive with any cheer. It came with this feeling of absolute doom. A blizzard rolled in, cutting us off from everything. The wind howled, and just after sunset, the power flickered and died, plunging us into a terrifying candlelit isolation. We were all in the living room, trying our best to pretend things were normal. My dad had a fire roaring, but we all kept glancing at the windows, at the dark, swirling snow. Then, around 9 p.m., we heard it, a heavy, wet thump against the back door. We all froze. My dad grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace. We just listened, every nerve screaming. Another thump, harder this time. This wasn't a knock. It was the sound of dead weight hitting the door. Then came a splintering crack. With one final explosive crash, the back door blew open, torn right off its hinges. Wind and snow rushed in, blowing out half the candles. And standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the storm, was the thing. It was so much worse up close. The smell hit me first, rot, damp earth, and something metallic like copper. Its red suit was caked with grime and frozen blood. Its face was a nightmare of gray, dried out flesh. One eye socket was just a black, empty hole. The other held a single hateful spark of light, and its beard was a tangled mess, matted with God knows what. The burlap sack it was dragging was leaking a thick, dark liquid onto our floor. It didn't speak with a mouth. A voice just slid right into my head. It was a dry, rasping whisper, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. The boy saw. It hissed in my mind. You saw. Witnesses. Witnesses go on a different list. And then I understood. The naughty list. The old stories say naughty kids just get coal in their stockings. But for this thing, the naughty list was something else. It wasn't for kids who misbehaved. It was a ledger of anyone who had seen it and lived. It was a list of loose ends, and we were right at the top. My dad let out this roar, pure fear and fury, and charged with the poker. The creature just raised a long skeletal arm and swatted him aside like he was nothing. He hit the wall hard and didn't move. My mom screamed. The thing took a lurching step into our home. I don't really know what happened next. I remember grabbing a heavy crystal vase and throwing it as hard as I could. It shattered against the creature's head, but it didn't even flinch. It just turned that one burning eye toward me, and the voice in my head got louder. "You are on the list." Then, through the broken doorway, a light cut through the storm. It was the first hint of dawn, way earlier than it should have been, breaking through the blizzard. The creature made this hissing sound, a noise of pure frustration. It pulled back from the weak morning light like it had been burned. It gave us one last look, a look that promised it wasn't over, and then it was gone, swallowed by the storm. When the police finally showed up, they were useless. They said it was probably an animal attack, a bear maybe. Confused by the storm, they noted the strange, deep tracks in the snow before they were covered up again, and they mentioned the foul smell that stuck around for days, but there was no real evidence that a crime had even happened. We moved a month later. We put 3 states between us and that house. We never ever spoke of it again, but we know we're still on the list, because every year on the morning of December 24th, we find it, left on our new doorstep no matter where we go. A small, muddy, broken toy. He's reminding us, he's hunting us, and sooner or later Christmas will come for us again. The most terrifying stories are the ones that feel like they could be true. If you've ever had an experience you can't explain, or you have a story that you just have to tell, I'd love to hear it. You can submit your story at the link in the description. And if you want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. You never know what's really lurking in the dark. In much of the world, Christmas is about snow, crackling fires, and stories of a jolly man in a red suit. It's a season where light pushes back the darkness, but in the sprawling archipelago of Indonesia, the holidays happen under a different sky, one filled with tropical warmth and ancient shadows. While Indonesia's 28 million Christians celebrate with unique and joyful traditions, the festive season also comes with a darker side. In Yogyakarta, you might see the nativity story told through Wayang Wahyu shadow puppets. In North Sumatra, the Marbinda tradition involves communities sharing the meat of a sacrificed animal. In Manado, the Kunci Town Festival wraps up a month of celebrations. And in many areas, the festive sounds include things like boisterous bamboo cannons. It's a time of intense travel, with families journeying long distances on winding rural roads to be together. It's a time of late-night journeys home in the dark. And in the darkness, things stir. For generations, one story has been whispered more than any other, a legend that haunts the lonely roads and quiet villages. It's the story of the Kuntilanak. To get why a late-night drive here can be so terrifying, you have to understand her. The Kuntilanak, sometimes called the Pontianak, is arguably Indonesia's most feared ghost. Her origin is a tragedy. She is the vengeful spirit of a woman who died during pregnancy or childbirth, her soul twisted by grief and rage. Denied peace, she wanders the earth, endlessly searching for her lost child and seeking revenge, especially against men. Her appearance is iconic and deeply unsettling. She often appears as a beautiful pale woman with long dark hair, wearing a clean white dress, a vision meant to lure you in. But it's a trap. When she reveals her true form, her face becomes grotesque, and some legends say her back is hollow, a gaping, horrific wound. But you'll almost always sense her before you see her. The first sign is a beautiful fragrance, the sweet perfume of frangipani or plumeria flowers drifting on the night air. This scent is a deceptive invitation, because as she gets closer, that sweet smell curdles, twisting into the gut-wrenching stench of a rotting corpse. The other sign is sound. You might hear a baby crying, seemingly lost in the dark. This is her cruelest trick, an echo of the child she lost, preying on the compassion of anyone who might stop to help. There's a chilling rule of thumb in the folklore. If the cry is loud, she's far away. But if it's soft, just a whisper, she's already right beside you. She's often seen in trees, especially banana trees, or just standing motionless on a deserted road, waiting. While the Kuntilanak is a year-round fear, the Christmas season creates a uniquely dangerous cocktail. All that holiday travel means more people on the roads, often late at night, cutting through dense jungles and past dark plantations, exactly where these legends feel most real. It's on these journeys, buzzing with holiday cheer, that the festive mood can be shattered by a pale figure in white. These aren't just old campfire tales, they are told as modern-day encounters and viral warnings. Let's get into the accounts of those who met the Kuntilanak and barely made it out alive. Countless stories circulate about encounters on these dark roads. While the names and locations change, the terrifying details are often the same. One popular version of the tale revolves around a family, let's call them the Santosos, trying to get to their village for Christmas. Like many families, the Santosos would pack up their car on Christmas Eve and drive several hours from the city to celebrate with their parents. The mood is always joyous, with kids in the back seat singing along to carols, excited to see their cousins. In the story, as night falls, they're about an hour away. The road has grown narrow, flanked by a dense, dark jungle. The streetlights have disappeared. Suddenly, the car starts to sputter. An engine that was running perfectly just moments before coughs, chokes, and then dies. They coast to a stop. The silence is absolute, broken only by the sound of insects. The dad, a guy who's meticulous about his car, gets out to check the engine but can't find anything wrong. It's the mom who notices it first. "Do you smell that?" It's a beautiful, sweet, and incredibly strong floral perfume, frangipani. But as they look around, there are no houses, no gardens, just endless dark trees. The scent gets stronger, almost suffocating. The joyous holiday mood in the car is gone, replaced by a primal fear. And then they hear it, a woman crying, a heartbroken sob coming from the trees. The parents freeze. Every ghost story they heard as kids comes rushing back. Long hair, white dress, the smell of flowers, the sound of crying. "Don't listen," the father says, his voice tight. The crying seems to get a little closer, a sound of pure agony that makes you want to help, but he knows you can't. He stares straight ahead, telling himself over and over, "Do not look, do not get out of the car." Then just as suddenly, the sweet floral scent vanishes. In its place, the vile stench of decay seeps into the car. Rotting meat. The kids start to cry in the back seat. The sobbing outside stops. The silence that follows is even worse. The dad's eyes flicker to his side mirror, and there, at the edge of the woods, stands a figure, a woman in a long, tattered white dress. Her head is bowed, her face hidden by a curtain of long black hair. She is perfectly still. His blood runs cold. This is it. The stories are real. With trembling hands, he fumbles for the ignition key, whispering a desperate prayer. He turns the key. The engine roars to life as if nothing was ever wrong. He doesn't think twice. He slams the car into gear and floors it, the tires screaming as they tear away into the night. He doesn't dare look in the rearview mirror. He just drives, not slowing down until the lights of his parents' village appear on the horizon like a sanctuary. They've made it home for Christmas, but a piece of them is left forever on that dark road. This story, or versions of it, serves as a powerful cautionary tale, reinforcing the old rules. Ignore strange sounds, and if you smell frangipani on a deserted road, you drive and you don't stop for anything. Before we get to our next story, which takes this fear from a lonely road into a city and blurs the line between legend and a live broadcast, I want to talk to the like button. Don't worry, that faint smell of flowers is probably just a coincidence, and that soft crying sound, just the wind. But just in case, you might want to help us out by turning a ghostly white to a solid blue. And while you're at it, consider subscribing. We tell strange, dark, and mysterious stories just like this, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Our next story isn't an ancient folk tale. It's a piece of modern horror, a terrifying urban legend that has spread like wildfire online. It takes us from a lonely road to a lonely building in a city in central Java, and it asks what happens when this entity gets aggressive. The legend centers on a small Christian radio station, Radio Pelita Kasih, which means Radio of the Light of Love. The story is set late on Christmas night in the graveyard shift. A young host named Doni is on the air playing Christmas hymns. and reading holiday messages for others who are working or alone. The station is on the top floor of an old, empty building. Doni is completely alone. Around 2 a.m., things start getting weird. First, a faint, sweet scent, frangipani, wafts into the studio. He mentions it on air, joking about it. A few minutes later, he takes a call from a woman with a soft, weak voice. She doesn't give her name. She just says she feels very alone. "I'm looking for my child," she whispers. "I can't find my child." A chill runs down Donnie's spine. The woman's grief feels too real. He tries to comfort her, and the line goes dead. He tries to shake it off. It's an emotional time of year. But then he hears it, crying, not through his headphones. It's coming from the hallway outside his studio door. The main building is locked. He's the only one there. He remembers the old folklore. If the crying is soft, she is close. He creeps to the studio door and peers through the small window. The hallway is empty. The crying is still there. And now the sweet smell is gone, replaced by the faint but unmistakable stench of decay. Terrified but still live on air, Donnie makes a choice. He unmutes his mic. "Listeners," he whispers, his voice trembling. I think there's someone in the building with me. I'm on the top floor and everything is locked, but I can hear someone crying." He's no longer just a radio host. He's documenting his own terror in real time. He describes the smell, the sound, the feeling of dread. His show has become a live horror story. Then, a light on his console blinks, an incoming call on an open line he didn't press. He slowly pushes the volume fader up. It's laughter, a high-pitched, malicious cackle, and it's not just in his headphones. He hears it from the hallway too, as if the caller is right outside the door. Then, a new sound begins, a slow, deliberate scratching on the studio door. On the air, Donnie starts to pray, his voice shaking. The scratching gets more frantic. The laughter is all around him. The last thing listeners supposedly heard was Donnie screaming, "No!" followed by a loud crash, and then static. Now, this is where the legend really takes hold. The story goes that alarmed listeners called the police. When they arrived, they found the building empty, but the studio door was smashed, torn from its hinges. The room was a wreck. Donnie's headphones lay snapped in half on the floor, but Donnie himself was gone, vanished. You won't find an official police report that ends with "disappeared by Kuntilanak." There are no verifiable recordings of this broadcast, but the lack of evidence hasn't stopped this story from becoming a legendary piece of internet folklore, a modern ghost story for the digital age. Donnie became another name on the list, a man who didn't make it home for Christmas because something unholy came for him. The story of Booty, the man from our intro, is a stand-in for countless similar tales. They are fictionalized, but they represent a very real fear. When a car is found abandoned on a road with a reputation, keys in the ignition, and Christmas gifts in the back, people talk. Investigators might look for a rational explanation, but locals will shake their heads and whisper her name, Kuntilanak. These legends aren't always about disappearances. Some stories tell of drivers being chased, or of a terrifying woman suddenly appearing in the back seat, seen for a split second in the rearview mirror. Others talk of people being lured into the woods by a baby's cry, only to be found days later, lost and in a state of shock, unable to speak of what they saw. The story of the Santoso family is the classic encounter, a perfect storm of all the warning signs. They were lucky, they knew the rules and got away. The legend of Donnie, the radio host, is a terrifying update showing the spirit is not just confined to rural roads, it's drawn to lonely people in lonely places, even in a city. And this is what makes the Kuntilanak so terrifying during the Christmas season. Christmas is about family, hope, and togetherness, everything she has lost. Her very existence is the antithesis of the Christmas spirit. She is a figure of eternal grief and a love for a child that has curdled into monstrous rage. Does the joy of the season agitate her, or does the increase in travelers just give her more opportunities? The Indonesian government isn't going to acknowledge supernatural causes for anything, of course, But that doesn't stop the stories. While official channels stick to logic, Indonesian popular media and online forums are filled with tales of the paranormal. The Kuntilanak legend survives because it serves a purpose. It's a warning. It's an explanation for the unexplainable. It gives a name and a face to the primal fear of the dark when you're all alone, far from home. So while families across Indonesia gather to celebrate, there's a collective, unspoken awareness of the shadows just beyond the festive lights. And understanding that the roads connecting them can also be hunting grounds. The line between folklore and a reported event is often blurry, isn't it? It's easy to say a car just stalled, that the wind howled, or an animal cried out in the night. But when the patterns repeat, the flowers smelled where there are none, the babies cry on a deserted road, the people who vanish, the legend of the Kuntilanak feels less like a story and more like a warning. The tales of the family on the road and the vanished radio host are chilling reminders that not all spirits rest during the season of peace. I started hearing the clicking 3 nights before I understood what it was. Not the usual apartment building noises either. Not pipes. Not the elevator. This was a wet, careful click that always came in sets of 3, like someone practicing with their tongue. Click, click, click. The first time I was standing in my kitchen at 1:17 a.m., microwaving leftover rice in a plastic container that already smelled faintly like soy sauce and old onion. The clock on the stove was fast by 2 minutes, so I checked my phone. 1:15 a.m. Battery 23%. That was when the sound came from inside the wall behind the fridge. I froze with my hand on the counter listening. The radiator hissed. A car alarm chirped somewhere on Liberty Street. Then again, click, click, click. And then nothing, like it had noticed me noticing it. I live in a small town where nothing dramatic ever happens without everybody knowing by lunchtime. Easton Falls, Connecticut, the kind of place with one main street, 2 pizza shops that hate each other, and a Facebook group that treats every coyote sighting like a serial killer case. My building is called Ridgeview Arms, which is a funny name because it's 3 floors, beige siding, and a parking lot that always smells like wet leaves and oil. My unit is 2B, facing the dumpsters and the little strip of woods behind the property. Nothing about it is special. That's why I could never explain what happened without sounding like I'd watched too many scary videos and started hearing things. I work nights at Once Benton's Market, the one open 24 hours near Route 7. Stocking, cleaning, closing down the deli slicer. The manager likes me because I show up, I don't talk back, and I'm willing to stay late when the morning crew calls out. That week, we were short-staffed, so I got home around 12:48 a.m. Most nights, tired and wired, with the taste of disinfectant still in my mouth. 3 nights before it got bad, I noticed a new smell in my apartment. It was faint at first, a wet, sweet rot, like a plastic bag of apples left in the sun. It came and went. I blamed the trash, I blamed the sink, I blamed the fact that my building was old and the guy in 1A smoked something that wasn't legal. Then the clicking started. The next night, I heard it again at 2:09 a.m. I had just gotten into bed, phone plugged in, scrolling until my eyes stopped stinging. I paused a video because I thought I heard something else, something like a soft scrape along the wall. Then the wet clicking came from the corner behind my headboard. Click, click, click. I sat up. The room was dark except for the streetlight glow filtering through my blinds. The air smelled like wet leaves because it had rained earlier and the windows never sealed right. My phone said 2:10 a.m. Battery on 61%. Charging. I pressed my ear to the wall. The drywall felt cool. I expected to hear my neighbor's TV or a pipe, something that made sense. Instead, I heard breathing. Not loud, not dramatic, just close. Too close to be on the other side of a wall. I pulled away so fast my elbow knocked my nightstand and my water bottle fell, bouncing twice on the carpet. The sound should have been loud enough to wake anyone. The breathing stopped instantly, like it had been listening to me listening. The next day, I did what any normal person does when they don't want to feel crazy. I made it into a maintenance issue. At 10:34 a.m., I called the property manager, Nancy, who always sounded like she was chewing gum, even when she wasn't. "Probably critters," she said. "We had squirrels in the soffit last month. Put in a request and I'll get maintenance to look." I put in a request through the online portal. Subject: noise in wall behind fridge/bedroom. Details: clicking sound and possible animal movement, also strange odor. I attached nothing because how do you attach a sound you're not even sure exists? That night at work, I tried to forget it. Benton's Market was bright and boring and loud in the way that makes you feel safe. The freezer fans, the beeping scanners, the canned music that looped every 2 hours. I stocked cereal while an old guy bought scratch-offs and told me about his knee surgery. At 11:52 p.m., I got a text from my downstairs neighbor, Mara 1B. "Mara, hey, do you ever hear like tapping?" Me, "where?" "Mara, in the walls, like near the bathroom. It's freaking me out." I stared at my phone in the break room. Fluorescent lights hummed above me. The smell of burnt coffee and deli meat filled the air. I typed back, "Me. Yeah, I hear clicking. Thought it was animals." She didn't respond. I didn't like that she used the word tapping, like someone's fingers. I didn't like that it wasn't just me. When I got home, the parking lot was empty except for my car and a gray sedan I didn't recognize. A thin fog hung low over the dumpsters. The woods behind the building looked darker than usual, like the trees had swallowed the streetlight. I checked my phone before I got out. 12:57 a.m. Battery, 18%. I hadn't charged it in the car. I climbed the stairs to the second floor, keys cold in my hand. The hallway smelled like old carpet and somebody's laundry detergent. When I reached my door, I saw something that made me stop. My doormat had moved. Just a little, like someone had nudged it with their shoe. I'm the kind of person who notices that stuff. I always straighten it when I come home. It was angled toward the door now, crooked, one corner folded slightly. I stood there listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no doors closing. No voices, just the low mechanical hum of the building, the kind you normally ignore. I unlocked my door and pushed it open. The smell hit me immediately. That wet, sweet rot, stronger now, like a compost bin left indoors. It made the back of my tongue taste metallic. I stepped inside and flicked on the light. My apartment looked normal. Couch, kitchen, shoes by the entryway. Nothing knocked over, but the air felt thick. I set my keys on the counter and froze because I heard it again. Click, click, click. This time it came from the kitchen wall right behind the fridge. I walked toward it slowly, bare feet on the cold linoleum. The fridge motor kicked on. The sound continued anyway, patient and deliberate. Click, click, click. Then a different noise, faint but unmistakable. A soft, dragging scrape, like something pulling itself along inside the wall. I backed away and grabbed a broom from the corner by the pantry, not because a broom would help, because holding something made me feel less like prey. I knocked the broom handle against the wall hard, once, twice. The clicking stopped. For a second, I almost laughed at myself. See? Animal. Scared it. Then the clicking started again. But not from behind the fridge, from the living room wall, closer to the ceiling. Click, 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 and then, from somewhere directly above me, a slow thump like a palm pressing against drywall. I stood under that spot, broom shaking slightly in my hands, and looked up like an idiot. The ceiling vent above the hallway was open by a crack. It hadn't been open when I left for work. I was sure of it because I'm a compulsive checker. I always glance at it because sometimes it rattles when the heat runs. Now it was open just enough to show a thin line of darkness. The building noise was suddenly too quiet. and then I heard footsteps. Not in the hallway outside, in the ceiling, slow, careful, uneven, like someone crawling, trying not to make the drywall groan. I stepped back until my shoulders hit my front door. My phone buzzed. It was Mara calling. I answered without looking. "Hello?" Her voice came through in a whisper. "Do you hear it too?" "Yeah," I said, barely moving my lips. "I hear something." "It's in my bathroom," she whispered. "I can hear it like it's right behind the mirror. It keeps stopping when I move." A soft click came from my ceiling vent. Click, click, click. "I think," Mara started, and then she cut off with a sharp inhale. "What?" I whispered. "It just did it again," she said. "It tapped back." My stomach dropped. Tapped back. "I knocked on the wall," she said, voice trembling. "Just like to scare an animal. And it knocked back the same pattern 3 times." As she said it, the ceiling above me made a faint, hollow sound. Thump, thump, thump. 3 knocks, perfectly spaced. It wasn't random, it was answering. I hung up on Mara without meaning to. My fingers were numb. I stared at my ceiling vent. In the quiet, I could hear my own breathing, shallow and fast. I tried to slow it down because I had this sudden, irrational fear that whatever was up there could hear it. Then I heard the other sound again. Breathing from the vent, not the rush of air, not the heat, actual breathing, wet and slow, like someone had their mouth close to the opening. I backed toward my door and fumbled with the lock. The deadbolt scraped loud in the silence. The breathing stopped. The vent creaked. Something shifted above it like weight. I didn't wait to think. I yanked the door open and stepped into the hallway. My neighbor across from me, Mr. Patel 2A, was standing in his doorway with his chain lock on. His eyes were wide. "You hear?" he asked quietly, his accent thick when he was nervous. "Yeah," I said. Did you call maintenance?" He shook his head, swallowing. "I called police yesterday. They come. They say, squirrels." As he said that, the hallway light flickered once like a blink. From inside my apartment, I heard a soft scrape, not in the wall, on my floor, like something had dropped down from somewhere. I stared at my open doorway. I couldn't see much from the angle, just my entryway rug, the edge of the kitchen, and the darkness beyond. Then, very slowly, something moved in the shadow inside. Not a full body, not a person stepping out, just a pale shape sliding into view at floor level, as if something was lying flat and pulling itself forward. I slammed my door so hard the frame rattled. The click came immediately from the other side, right at the peephole height. Click, click, click. Mr. Patel's door shut quietly. I heard his chain slide. The hallway suddenly felt too long and too empty. The gray sedan in the lot flashed in my mind. The moved doormat, the open vent. I walked fast down the stairs, not running because running makes noise and noise makes you feel like you're being chased even if you aren't. Outside, the air was cold and wet. The fog had thinned, but the smell of damp earth was strong. I stood under the streetlight and called the police with my hands shaking. My phone battery said 7%. I told the dispatcher there might be someone in the crawl space or vents, that multiple tenants were hearing someone in the walls. I expected to be treated like a paranoid person. Instead, she asked, "Are you safe right now?" That question made my skin crawl, like she'd heard this before. "I'm outside," I said, "in the parking lot." "Stay outside," she said. "Officers are on the way." I sat on the curb near my car and watched the building. A couple lights were on in windows. Most were dark. The woods behind the dumpsters moved in the breeze like a living thing. I kept thinking I'd see someone slip out the back, someone in a hoodie, someone holding stolen copper pipe, but nothing moved. 10 minutes later, 2 police cars rolled in, tires hissing on wet pavement. The officers were calm, But the second they stepped out, I saw them both look up at the building like they were listening. One of them, Officer Halverson, asked me to explain again. I did, stumbling over the part about the vent and the breathing. He didn't laugh, he didn't smirk, he just nodded and asked, "Anybody else report it?" "Yeah," I said, "my downstairs neighbor, and Mr. Patel, and I think others." The officers went inside with flashlights. They checked the hallway. They knocked on a few doors. Mara came out wrapped in a blanket, eyes red. Mr. Patel stood behind his chain lock like a man guarding his family. The officers went up to the third floor access panel to the attic crawl space. I watched from the stairs. Officer Halverson pushed the panel up and pointed his flashlight into the dark. The beam swept across insulation, beams, and ductwork. Then it stopped. His posture changed. He called the other officer over without raising his voice. They both stared up into the crawl space like they'd found something that didn't belong in a place you keep your Christmas decorations. "What is it?" I asked, voice cracking. Officer Halverson didn't answer me. He said softly to his partner, "You see that?" His partner said, "Yeah." He looked down at us tenants on the stairs, and for the first time, his face showed something close to discomfort. "Everybody needs to leave the building," he said. "Now." "Why?" Mara asked, clutching her blanket. "We're going to clear the crawl space," he said, and then he added, "There's signs someone's been up there." "What kind of signs?" I asked. He hesitated, like he didn't want to put it in my head. Then he said, "Food, trash, bedding, and footprints." "Footprints?" I repeated. "In the insulation," he said. "Bare." We filed out like a slow, confused parade. Some people had shoes, some didn't. Mr. Patel carried a toddler who looked half asleep, cheeks wet with tears. Mara's hands shook so hard her phone kept slipping. Outside, we gathered near the parking lot lights. The officers went back in. I stared up at the building, at the vents, at the dark windows. I kept waiting to hear it, the clicking. And then I did. Not from inside. From the woods behind the dumpsters. Click, click, click. I turned my head toward the trees. The fog had shifted again, curling low between trunks. Something pale was there. I couldn't see a full shape. Just a suggestion of movement, like a person crouched low. But it wasn't moving like a person. It moved like something that didn't know how to stand. Mara stood next to me, eyes wide. "Do you hear that?" "Yeah," I whispered. The clicking came again, closer, and then a new sound, almost worse because it was familiar. A phone vibration. Not mine. Mine was at 2% and dying. The vibration came from the grass near the curb, where a phone lay face down, buzzing like it was getting a call. Officer Halverson's phone. I'd seen it on his belt earlier. I remembered the black case, the clip. It was now in the grass, as if it had been placed there carefully. The screen lit up with an incoming call. The caller ID didn't say a name. It said Ridgeview Arms Maintenance. The phone kept buzzing over and over. The vibration was loud in the cold air. None of us moved. Then the call stopped. A second later, the phone buzzed again. Same caller. Ridgeview Arms Maintenance. The officers were still inside. Their flashlights flickered through the stairwell windows. Mara took a step back. "That's not..." A sound came from the trees, a wet inhale. Then, from somewhere inside the building, through the walls and vents and hollow spaces, it answered. Click, click, click. The call finally stopped, and the screen changed like someone had accessed it without touching it. A new notification appeared on the lock screen, bright and clean in the dark. Work order updated. Unit 2, B, noise in wall behind fridge bedroom, also strange odor. Status completed. I didn't sleep in my apartment after that. The police told us they didn't find anyone in the crawl space. They found evidence, yes, but no person. The property manager called it vandalism. The maintenance guy swore he'd never been in the attic. Everybody had a reason. Everybody had an explanation that fit on paper. A week later, Nancy emailed all tenants saying they'd sealed access points and replaced damaged vent covers. She told us to stop spreading rumors. Mara moved out first. Mr. Patel moved out the same day. The gray sedan never showed up again, but the doormat in front of my door kept shifting slightly, like someone was checking to see if I'd come home yet. I tried to move too, but leases don't care about fear, so I bought a cheap camera and pointed it at the hallway ceiling vent. I told myself if I caught anything, I'd have proof. I'd have something solid. On December 14th at 3:12 a.m., I woke up to a buzzing sound behind my wall, like an old fluorescent light struggling to stay on. Then I heard footsteps, not above me, in the hallway outside my door. Slow steps that stopped when I held my breath. My phone was at 9%. I didn't want to turn on any lights. I opened the camera app anyway and checked the live feed from the little camera pointed at my vent. The screen showed my living room in grainy black and white. The vent was open, and something was watching from inside it. Not a face, not exactly, just a pale curve, a suggestion of skin, and a dark, wet shine where eyes should have been. It stayed perfectly still. Then the audio from the camera caught a sound that came through sharp and clear, like it was right next to the microphone. A wet clicking in sets of 3. Click, click, click. And then, in a voice so close it sounded like it was inside my skull, it whispered my own maintenance request back to me word for word, in Nancy's gum-chewing tone, like it had been practicing. I got the rules in an envelope that wasn't mine. No stamp, no return address. Just my apartment number written in careful block letters, like someone copied it from a clipboard. Inside was a plain white key card with a black 7 printed on it, and a single sheet titled Gray Line Hotel, Night Front Desk Orientation. Read in full before you enter. I'd applied for the job that morning. The posting was vague, but the pay was real. Night shift, minimal guests, quiet lobby, reliable presence required. The sheet didn't read like orientation. It read like a dare. Gray Line Hotel, night desk rules. 1. Arrive at 8:57 p.m. exactly. If you arrive early, wait in your car with the doors locked. If you arrive late, do not enter. Go home, do not look back. 2. Do not answer the lobby phone after 12:11 a.m. If it rings, let it ring until it stops. If it rings again immediately, turn the phone upside down. 3. If the elevator opens to the basement, do not step inside. Press L twice. If the doors close without moving, hide behind the desk until you hear the elevator return. 4. At 1:30 a.m., the front doors will be knocked on exactly 3 times. Do not unlock the doors. Do not look directly at them until the knocking stops. 5. If a guest checks in with fully black eyes, assign room 713. Do not hand them a pen. They will not need one. 6. If you see a child in the lobby after 2 a.m., do not approach. Look down at the guest registry and read the last name on the last occupied room out loud. 7. At 3:33 a.m., the lobby lights will flicker. Remove the brass bell from the drawer beneath the register. Ring it once. If you hear a ring answer from behind you, ring it twice more. 8. If a camera labeled 7F hallway appears, do not select it. If it displays by itself, close your eyes and count to 30. When you open them, it will be gone. 9. Do not eat, drink, or fall asleep on shift. 10. If these rules change, do not attempt to leave. Sign the bottom line. There was a signature line at the bottom, blank, like a contract. I told myself it was a gimmick. Some hotel trying to scare new hires, a weird culture thing. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. A man's voice, flat and dry. You start tonight, 9 p.m. Bring the rules. I should have hung up. Instead, I folded the paper and went. The Gray Line sat on a side street downtown I'd somehow never noticed. Tall, narrow, squeezed between older brick buildings like it was trying not to be seen. The sign was simple metal letters, gray line, backlit in a color that was technically white but made the air feel cold. I arrived on 8:52 p.m. and sat in my car. Doors locked. Rule 1. At 8:57 exactly, my phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number. Enter. I crossed the street and pushed through the glass doors. Warm lobby light, polished wood desk, marble floor, a chandelier that looked too expensive for a hotel nobody talked about. Behind the front desk stood a woman in a gray blazer, late 20s, hair pinned tight, eyes tired enough to look bruised. "You're the night desk," she said. "Yeah, I got this," I said, tapping my pocket. She slid a clipboard across the counter. The same rule sheet was clipped to it, crisp and clean, like my version had been a draft. Sign. "Is this mandatory?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "It's easier if you don't negotiate," she said, and her voice had the same tired flatness as the phone call. I glanced at the lobby clock. 8:59. My chest tightened. I signed. The woman tore off the signature portion and put it into a drawer under the desk as if it mattered more than the rules themselves. Then she handed me the white keycard. "Keep this on you," she said. "For what? I'm staying in the lobby." She didn't answer that directly. "Don't answer the phone after 12:11. If the elevator opens to the basement, don't go near it. And if you see a child..." She stopped, like the rest of the sentence hurt. Then she walked out through the front doors without looking back. The lock clicked behind her, a soft sound but final enough to feel like a decision had been made. The first couple hours were almost normal. A woman checked in at 9:30, a businessman at 10:10. Their eyes were normal. Their signatures were messy. They complained about parking like real humans do. I sat behind the desk watching security monitors. Lobby, elevators, hallways, stairwells, no 7F camera. At me 12:07 a.m., the lobby phone rang for the first time all night. The sound wasn't modern. It had that sharp, old-school trill that feels like it's cutting the air rather than vibrating it. I picked up out of habit. "Front desk, how can I help you?" Static, then a whisper so close it felt like it was inside my ear. "You signed." The line went dead. I stared at the receiver. My hand was sweating. I checked the clock. 12:08. Too close. At 12:11, exactly, the phone rang again. Rule 2, I didn't touch it. I watched it ring until it stopped, my heartbeat matching the rhythm. Then it rang again immediately. I reached out and flipped the phone upside down. The ringing continued, muffled, like someone laughing into a pillow. It rang for another minute, then stopped. Silence came back, heavier than before. At 12:36, the elevator dinged. The doors slid open. The display above it read, "B, basement, Rule 3. The air near the elevator smelled like cold metal and damp concrete, like a parking garage after rain. I stayed behind the desk, but my body leaned forward without permission. The elevator sat open like it was waiting for me to get curious. No one stepped out. I pressed the lobby button on the elevator panel, L. Nothing. I pressed it again. The doors closed. The indicator stayed on B. No movement. No hum. Rule 3. If the doors close without moving, hide behind the desk until you hear the elevator return. I ducked behind the desk, crouched low, feeling stupid and terrified at the same time. 30 seconds. A minute. Then a soft ding. The elevator hummed. The indicator changed. The doors opened again to the lobby, like nothing had happened. I stayed hidden an extra minute anyway. When I stood up, the lobby clock read 12:49. Time was moving. I just didn't like how the building seemed to care about it. At 1:30 a.m., the knocks came. 3 hard knocks against the glass front doors. Rule 4 said don't look directly at them, so I stared at the marble floor. The knocks came again. 3, perfectly spaced. Then something changed. Instead of knocks, there was a faint dragging sound like fingernails sliding down glass. My stomach tightened so hard it hurt. I forced my eyes to stay on the floor. No acknowledgement, no movement, finally silence. When I lifted my gaze, the sidewalk outside was empty. No person, no shadow, no movement. But there was a faint smear on the glass at face height, like someone had pressed their forehead against it. I did not go near it. At 2:03 a.m., Child walked into the lobby, not through the front doors, from the interior hallway, barefoot, pajama top with tiny clouds, hair wet, dark strands stuck to his forehead. Rule 6. I didn't move toward him. I looked down at the guest registry. My hands flipped pages too fast. Names blurred. The last occupied room, last check-in, room 518, last name, Hensley. Hensley, I said, voice thin. The child's smile widened, too wide, like the expression didn't fit the face. He stepped backward, then turned and walked calmly back into the hallway, vanishing around the corner. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Then I noticed the footprints, small wet footprints on the tile leading from the hallway into the lobby and back, but there was a second set layered over them, longer and heavier, stepping into the smaller prints, hiding their own shape, like something had walked behind the child and wanted me to think it hadn't. At 3:33 a.m., the lobby lights flickered hard. Rule 7. I opened the drawer beneath the register and found the brass bell. It was small and heavy, tarnished in the grooves. I rang it once. Bright chime, sharp, clean. A second chime answered from behind me. Not from the bell, from somewhere in the building, deeper than the lobby. Rule 7 said ring twice more. I rang twice quickly. The answering chime stopped. The lobby light steadied. My hands shook as I put the bell back. The whole lobby felt like it was listening, waiting for the next mistake. That's when I saw it on the security monitor. A camera tab that hadn't been there before. 7F hallway. Rule 8. I did not click it. The feed opened by itself anyway. The screen filled with a dim hallway, red carpet, beige walls, lights too far apart. At the end, a door with brass numbers. 713 point. And in front of it, a tall figure standing unnaturally still, facing the door like it was listening for breathing on the other side. Then its head turned toward the camera, toward me. My hand slammed the keyboard. Nothing changed. Rule 8. Close your eyes and count to 30. I squeezed my eyes shut. 1, 2, 3. I heard something faint, close. A sound like soft tapping, not on glass, not on marble, on wood, behind the desk. 4, 5. A whisper brushed my ear. You're learning. 6. My skin prickled. 7, 8. The whisper again, softer, amused. But you broke one. 9. My brain scrambled. Which rule? I'd followed them mostly. 10, 11. A breathy laugh. 20. The air felt tight, like someone leaning close. 30. I opened my eyes. The lobby feed returned. The 7F tab was gone. On the counter, beside the guest registry, sat a small clean slip of paper that hadn't been there before. Rule 8 was a test. You passed. I stared at it, furious and relieved in equal measure. I crumpled it and shoved it aside. That's when my elbow bumped the coffee cup I'd brought. Rule 9. Do not eat or drink. I hadn't taken a sip. I'd told myself bringing it didn't count. The cup tipped. Coffee spilled across the desk, rushing toward the phone base. The phone made a sudden noise, not a ring exactly, more like a distorted shriek. Then it fell silent. My heart stopped. A moment later, a ringing sound started again. Not from the phone, from the interior hallway, like the ringing had moved. I turned slowly. The hallway was darker than it should have been, like light didn't want to go there. And at the edge of the darkness, something stood holding a phone receiver to where its ear should be. It lowered the receiver slowly, Then it began walking toward me, not rushing, not lunging, walking like a manager approaching an employee who just made a mess. Its uniform looked like a hotel blazer, gray and too loose. Its face didn't settle right, like it couldn't decide on features. The eyes were simply wrong. Not fully black, not fully anything, hollow. "You spilled," it said, and the voice was layered, multiple tones speaking together. "I didn't mean to," I managed. "Accidents," it said, "are admissions." The lobby phone rang once, sharp and bright like punctuation. I grabbed the brass bell drawer with shaking hands and yanked it open. I rang the bell once, desperate. The figure paused, head twitching like the sound irritated it. I rang it again. Its shoulders lifted slightly, like it was laughing without moving its mouth. "Wrong bell," it whispered. Every phone in the lobby lit up at once, ringing together in a chorus that made my teeth ache. The sound filled my head like pressure. I clamped my hands over my ears and stumbled backward into the wall. The figure didn't advance, it just watched, enjoying the panic. Then the ringing stopped all at once. Silence slammed down. "You don't get to call for help," it said calmly. "You are the help." It pointed toward the elevator. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. The display read 7. I hadn't touched the buttons. The figure stepped aside, a gesture like a host offering a tour. "Floor 7, it said. "Your floor." I swallowed, throat raw. "What happens if I don't go?" Its head tilted. "Then you find out what the basement is for." I stepped into the elevator. The air inside smelled like the envelope, cold metal and something old. The doors closed. The elevator rose. Floor 7 was quieter than silence. The hallway felt thick, like walking into a room where sound died. Doors lined the corridor, 701, 703, 705, then 713. The brass numbers were scratched as if someone had tried to claw them off. My phone buzzed with a text. "Open it." At the far end of the hall, darkness pooled too deeply, and something shifted within it, smooth and patient. Like it knew I'd hesitate. I forced my hand to the doorknob. It was slightly damp, as if someone had just touched it. The door opened easily. Inside wasn't a hotel room. It was a small office, desk, chair, weak lamp casting a yellow circle. On the desk, another rules sheet. Floor 7 addendum. 1. Do not look through the peephole. If you feel watched, look at your hands. 2. You will hear the elevator open. Do not leave until it closes again. 3. If you hear the lobby phone ring, do not answer. You cannot answer. 4. A guest will knock. They will not knock 3 times. Do not open the door until you hear exactly 3 knocks. If you hear 3 knocks immediately, do not open. Wait for the second set. 5. If the lights go out, hold your breath. If you fail, bite your tongue. 6. At 4:44 a.m., you will be offered a trade. Do not accept. Do not offer. Silence is your only currency. The elevator opened outside in the hall. Rule 2. I stayed seated, rigid, staring at my hands like they were anchors. Footsteps approached 713, slow, wet, deliberate. They stopped right outside the office door. A knock. 1 knock. Pause. 2 knocks close together, not 3. A whisper slid under the door. "You're new." I didn't answer. I stared at my hands. The doorknob turned slightly, testing. "Open up." The whisper coaxed. "I can show you the stairs." Then it changed tone, amused. "You spilled." The footsteps retreated. The elevator doors closed. Only then did I breathe again. At 4:44 a.m., the lamp flickered. The air pressure shifted, and a voice came from the walls, intimate and calm. "A trade," it said. My whole body screamed for sleep. My eyes burned. My thoughts felt slow. It knew exactly what I needed. "I'll take your name," the voice offered, "and I'll give you rest." Rule 6 said silence is your only currency. I kept my mouth shut. A pen appeared on the desk, rolling slightly toward me. A hotel pen. gray with the Gray Line logo. Rule 5 from the lobby. Don't hand them a pen. They didn't need me to hand it over. They were adapting. Just a signature, the voice murmured. Just like before. The lamp went out. Total darkness. Rule 5, hold your breath. I clamped my mouth shut and held it. In the dark, something shifted in the room with me, fabric dragging across carpet, a presence leaning close. My lungs burned. A whisper touched my face. Accidents are admissions. I held on until my chest felt ready to tear. Then the lamp clicked back on. I gasped, air rushing in. The pen was gone, but the addendum sheet had changed. Rule 6 now read, 6. At 4:44 a.m., you will be offered a trade. Do not accept, do not offer. Silence is your only currency. If you remain silent, they will take something anyway. Choose what you can live without. My stomach dropped. That wasn't a rule anymore. That was leverage. The hallway outside went quiet, then came 3 knocks. Exactly 3. Rule 4 said, don't open if you hear 3 knocks immediately. Wait for the second set. Those 3 knocks came immediately, perfectly, like it had learned the pattern. I stayed frozen. A second set of 3 knocks came, softer, patient. My hands trembled. I looked at the bottom of the rule sheet. A new line had been added in smaller font. New rule, if you hesitate, you have already agreed. The doorknob turned slowly, not forcing, just negotiating the lock. My phone buzzed. You can go home at 5 a.m. if you leave your name behind. I stared at the clock on the wall. 4:59. The second hand ticked, each click a threat. 5 o'clock. The hallway went dead silent. The doorknob stopped moving. The building felt like it was holding out a hand. I understood then what the Gray Line really did. It didn't hunt you like an animal. It contracted you like a service. It rewrote terms until you made a mistake, then called it consent. And I had made a mistake. Coffee on the desk, drink on shift, ringing moved away from the phone. Accidents are admissions. Something inside me snapped, not brave, just desperate. The pen reappeared on the desk. A blank sheet slid out from under the lamp like the desk was a printer. It said, "Print your full name." My hand moved toward it, slow, heavy, like exhaustion had turned my arm into someone else's. I grabbed the pen, not to write, to break it. I snapped it in half. The crack sounded loud in the little office. Ink spilled onto the desk, thick and black, pooling in a way ink shouldn't. The lamp flared bright white, as if the building blinked. Then everything went still. When the light settled, the desk was clean. No pen pieces, no ink, only the rule sheet. And at the bottom, a final new rule had appeared. New rule: if you break the pen, you are the ink. I stared until my eyes watered. Then I felt something wet on my fingertips. I looked down. Black ink was seeping from the lines of my palms, not pouring, just oozing slowly, like my skin had become a leaking cartridge. I stood up too fast, dizzy. The office door clicked, unlocked by itself. Outside, the hallway lights were steady now, almost normal, like the building was satisfied, like it had gotten what it wanted. I don't remember the elevator ride down. I don't remember crossing the lobby. I remember morning light outside my apartment building, too bright, too normal. I remember staring at my own mailbox like it might bite. My hands were clean again, no ink, but when I tried to say my own last name out loud, my mouth stopped halfway through. The word wasn't there. Not forgotten like a memory, but missing like a file deleted. My phone buzzed. An email, no sender listed. Subject line, Gray Line Hotel, updated night desk rules. I opened it. Rule 1 was the same. Rule 2, Rule 3. Then I saw the new addition under Rule 1, 1. Arrive at 8:57 p.m. exactly. If you arrive early, wait in your car with the doors locked. If you arrive late, do not enter. If you do not remember your name, we will provide you a new one. And at the bottom of the email, a single line in the same old font. Welcome back, Ink.